So as of this week, it's basically 99% certain that it will be the rematch nobody wanted in the next presidential election. Donald Trump and Joe Biden won very convincingly in all of their primaries on Super Tuesday. Nikki Haley, the only challenger left to Donald Trump, has pulled out. So we're looking at him being confirmed as the Republican candidate officially next week. Joe Biden also did well, a few protest votes against Gaza against him, but nothing even close to stopping him running for the next election. Look, another thing happened this week ahead of Super Tuesday, which was the Supreme Court decision that said that Colorado was not allowed to block Trump from the ballot. I mean, these legal issues have, kind of clouded over this campaign for the whole time, in no other election before. But do you want to just explain this particular?
Yeah, sure.
challenge?
So the state of Colorado obviously has its own court system, which is separate to the federal system, the federal court system, and the Colorado Supreme Court found that because Trump had engaged in an insurrection in connection with his activities on January the 6th, the storming of the Capitol building, that he was prevented from running for office on the basis of the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment prohibits anyone from running for office who is, as I say, engaged in any insurrection or supported a foreign army.
A sort of Civil War era.
Exactly, yeah. It was introduced into the Constitution in order to prevent those who had engaged in the Confederacy from immediately running for public office. The thought was that you would have effectively an unfunctional government if you had it stacked with people who didn't believe in the government to begin with.
Yeah.
So the Colorado State Court said that he was prevented from being on the ballot. I don't think any legal scholar thought that would, or American legal scholar would thought that would stand the test of the Supreme Court, and it didn't. The Supreme Court unanimously said that the Colorado decision was wrong, that the state had no power to declare Trump to be an insurrectionist based on the allegations in relation to January the 6th. They had no power to remove him from the ballot, so they ordered that be quashed, and he is now on the ballot in Colorado. That's definitely a good thing, because had the Supreme Court not found that would have effectively skewed the American election in favor of Joe Biden, and that would have disrupted faith in American democracy for millions of people, and that would have been a disaster. So the right legal result has come about. But of course, Trump is not out of the woods. He still faces criminal charges in connection with January the 6th, and that case will take its course. There are some people that think it's a load of rubbish. Some people think it's stronger. We'll wait and see. And of course, there's other criminal charges against him as well. But at least we now know he's likely to be a candidate who legally can fight this election.
Yeah. Even if he has to do it from a jail cell.
Even if he has to do it from jail, and he probably could still do it. But,
one of the things with the legal challenges is that it seemed as if, if you cast your mind back not that long ago, Trump maybe wasn't necessarily the obvious contender. People did think that someone like Ron DeSantis, for instance, would have a chance. But it seems as if the legal challenges have actually boosted his profile, certainly boosted his support among Republicans, and people, boosted the fervor of the Trump fans. I mean, hasn't it just made him seem like he's the more authentic anti-establishment candidate? Isn't it? It's legally wrong, this particular challenge, you said, Luke, but also it's just politically dense to have gone after him in this way.
It's politically stupid because it's entirely plays to his narrative that he's being shut down by the establishment, that they're scared of taking him on electorally, and that they are out to get him at any cost. It's also right to point out that many of these cases are slightly hypocritical because a lot of the things, when it comes to, for example, classified documents, the things that are alleged against him have been alleged against other political leaders. For example, we all remember Hillary Clinton's private email account, and prosecutors and those in power have taken a soft approach. So he's right to point out those hypocrisies, and that all gives him a very powerful narrative to say that they don't want to fight him in the ballot box.
Yeah. And Candice, one of the big talking points in the US in recent weeks has been Trump's growing support among ethnic minority voters. Now, a lot of progressives will think, how on earth can this happen? Trump is a racist, but also they're supposed to vote for us. We're the ones who care about ethnic minority issues. I mean, what have you made of that?
Yeah, I find it really interesting. It just shows that, Trump does appeal to people in a number of different ways. I mean, the way that he won the 2016 election was actually by appealing to very specific concerns in places like Michigan, which were actually class concerns. And that's the way he won that election. And I think that's what he does. It's sort of, he transcends a lot of those racial politics and he appeals to people on a broader level, which is something his opponents would never, ever, ever admit. But I think we saw that in the 2016 election and the 2020 election, that he had started growing his support amongst ethnic minorities who are often, disproportionately poorer and are struggling and having a tougher time. So that makes sense. And I think that that's something that his opponents have always failed to grasp, because I think the way that they always portray Trump is just as this unique evil. This unique evil who is doing something terrible to the democratic process. And that's why they often use the law to bypass it. And, people couldn't have possibly voted for him because they have rational reasons for doing so. It's because he's tricked them somehow. Or there's been election meddling. And that's the sort of narrative that they spin for themselves. And I think that it means that they actually are slightly out of touch with the voters that they want to reach.
Luke, how would you account for sort of Biden's failing support? Because he did do very well in the 2020 election. He did win back actually quite a lot of those working class Trump supporters, the kind of people who voted for Obama and then switched to Trump. Some of them switched back to Biden, but again, it seems to have not gone that well.
Yeah, I think it's worth emphasizing that his problem is not on the Gaza issue necessarily. It's a fringe concern. And Trump is taking kind of mainstream, middle of the road voters away from Biden. And that's got to be a massive concern for him, because it's not the fringe left that's causing his problems. I think there is a genuine concern about his ability to run a country, given his pretty consistent gaffes and the impression that I think is now seeping into popular culture that he is incapable of doing the job. I think there's also a widespread despondency about the nature that, as you say, the rematch that no one wanted. And I think when you're faced with these two individuals, I guess Trump just comes up as more dynamic and more engaged and perhaps even more capable. There's probably other people who think that the world felt a little bit safer madly under Donald Trump, and that there is some truth to the argument that that his unpredictability perhaps created some degree of, ironically, stability across the world. That might be playing into people's minds as well. We have experienced great, geopolitical uncertainty over the last 4 years, which I have no doubt people do in part attribute to Biden, and perhaps not incorrectly. So I think all of those factors are kind of creating a perfect storm at the moment. And I also think, the Americans care. One of the principal dividing lines will be immigration. And, America has an immigration problem at the moment, a serious debate around the paucity of their borders. And I think Biden is seen to be soft on that. And Trump is exploiting that to the best extent that he can.